I'm videotaping this sort of a little distinction here as in response to send to some of my clients who have asked some questions, and also to run by other trainers that I know, and perhaps Ken Hutchins, Drew Bay, to get their feedback on my thoughts on this. So some of my clients have read Body by Science by Doug McGuff, and they're asking me about why their sets take significantly longer in some cases than 90 seconds. In other words, the number of repetitions they do in total when timed takes sometimes as much as 2 or even 3 minutes for some people. And they've read in the book, of course, that there's a concept called early recruitment of muscle fibers that says that the ideal time under load, at least the way they interpret it in the book, was 90 seconds in order to prevent slow twitch fibers from being recruited over and over again and potentially hindering getting to the fast twitch fibers. So this requires a little bit of explanation. So first of all, when we contract muscles, fibers contract 100% or not at all. So in other words, your muscle doing something easy. It's not like all of your muscle is working easily or hard if it's harder, but your body only recruits the number of muscle fibers needed to complete whatever task you're imposing on your musculature. And what it does is if that work continues beyond a certain point, the initial muscle fibers that are recruited fatigue and drop off, if you will, and then new fresh muscle fibers come into play. And the idea with the orderly recruitment of fibers, as I understand it, is that initially your body will recruit the slow twitch fibers, and that's not about moving slow, but those are muscles that are slow to fatigue. And then once they tire out, then it will go to medium twitch fibers and finally to fast twitch fibers. Now there's more classifications than just slow, medium, and fast, but for the sake of explanation, that's good enough. So the idea being that if the set lasts too long, the slow twitch fibers that were used initially will have a chance to recover and then subsequently be recruited again, once again, potentially stopping you from having the medium twitch and the fast twitch fibers come into play. And the whole idea in a set of working to muscular failure is to ensure that you have in fact reached those fast twitch fibers, which appear to be those that are most adaptable to strengthening. And of course, if you don't use them, if you always do various activities of a low intensity and never push yourself to that point, those fast twitch fibers may never get used because your body tends to reserve them for fight or flight situations and doesn't use them unless it absolutely has to, because it wants to keep them for a fight or flight situation where they're really going to need them. However, if you don't use them for years and years, then your body realizes, well, I guess we don't need these fast twitch fibers, and eventually they start to you don't have them anymore, and that's a big part of how people weaken as they get older. And of course, conversely, is one of the real benefits of working intensely enough to keep those muscle fibers working and then sending the signal to your body that they are necessary and they need to be maintained so that you can get stronger at an older age. Now, the 90 seconds. So first of all, my understanding, Doug McGuff listens to this, he can certainly correct me, is that 90 seconds is a starting point, not necessarily the be-all, end-all, because the actual time for this will vary from individual to individual, and even from different body parts to other body parts, depending on the preponderance of their individual slow twitch, fast twitch, or medium twitch fibers. So for some people, they may benefit from a shorter time under load, and other people may benefit for longer time under load, or so goes the theory. And Arthur Jones had come up with the idea of testing which was better for different individuals. So what his standard recommendation back in the Nautilus days, back when the cadence was a lot faster than what I espouse today. It was a 2 seconds lifting phase and a 4-second lowering phase. He would recommend that people would do between 8 and 12 repetitions. And if the weight was so heavy you couldn't do at least 8 times, 2 seconds lifting, 4 seconds down, 48 seconds, you should lower the weight till you can do at least 8. And if you got to the point where you could do 12, which comes to 72 seconds, you should increase the weight. Of course, he realized that that was also a starting point and might not be the perfect for all people, but it was a good average that would work for most people, or so he thought. So what he came up with and realized is that some people could lift a percentage of their 1 repetition maximum more times than somebody did. So for example, if an individual on a bench press, for example, their 1 repetition maximum, the amount they can lift, the very maximum they can lift 1 time, which is a dangerous practice in itself, I'll come back to that shortly, is 100 pounds, then Arthur would give that person 80 pounds and see how many times that person could lift 80% of their 1 rep maximum, which is when he realized that some people might be able to only lift their 80% of their 1 rep maximum 3 or 4 times, and other people at the other end of the bell curve, if you will, were able to lift the weight for 15, 20, or 25 repetitions. And the idea was, based on this test, that the former would benefit from a shorter time under load or fewer reps, and the latter would benefit from longer time under load or more reps. And of course, he would do the test on both an upper body and a lower body exercise because it might not be the same for both people. So having said that, what recent studies, and I believe it was James Fisher or James Steele, or maybe both together from Salk University in the United Kingdom, they either did this study or just basically did a talk at some point where they cited this study that seemed to indicate that the time under load was not nearly that important as long as the person exercising actually reached muscular failure. Now, some caveats to that. That would imply, if you did a weight that was a 1 repetition max and you reached failure, that would be just as good as doing 20 reps or a much longer time under load. So at the low end, if the time under load is so short that it requires you to lift a very heavy weight, then you run into the issue of safety and proper form. If the weight is that heavy, the odds that somebody's form will deteriorate and not be very good are much greater. And as a result of poorer form and additional weight, then the stress on joints, ligaments, and tendons tends to be potentially injurious. At the other end, if the weight is so light that the set goes on interminably, like 4, 5, 6 minutes, then what happens is the person will likely, first of all, it's impractical, it makes your workout very long. The person will might stop the set, not because they've reached true muscular failure, the point at which they are unable to complete another repetition despite their best effort, another repetition in perfect form that is, but simply because the pain or the discomfort of the set is just gotten to the point where they're just not willing to go anymore. So it still assumes that there's a sweet spot somewhere in there, but that sweet spot may not be as important to get just right as it would. Now, speculation on the side, others may comment on this, is the longer set, if there is recruiting of fibers over and over again and being used more, is this a matter of eventually leading to more overtraining than would be for maybe a shorter time under load? On that, I'm speculating only. Also, with older individuals, the idea of having a longer time under load also brings into play the safety aspect, because with an older person using lighter weights and then taking them a little bit longer is just a little bit easier on the joints, ligaments, and tendons. So I tend to err on that side. Now, one of the things that I've done is I've used specific cadences and kind of strayed a little bit from the straight 10 up, 10 down of super slow protocol. And I'll typically, depending on the type of exercise, with a pressing exercise, I'll do a 10-second lift and a 20-second lowering as a first rep, kind of serving as a bit of a warm-up, and then do a number of repetitions in the middle at 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. And then once person nears failure and it becomes apparent that they won't be able to do another positive rep in good form, then they would slowly lower the final rep in about 20 seconds. And if I've chosen that right, it should be about 90, 95 seconds, but different people, again, will benefit from different ranges. The other thing that I've speculated on is not only there would be individual differences between individuals and even different body parts in the same individual, but whether that would change over time. As a person trains, there's the proportion of their slow to medium to fast twitch fibers change, and accordingly create a situation where what would have once been ideal for them would be less ideal now. So food for thought, but one of the things that where I kind of land with this is how much does this matter in the end? And what I mean by that is if you're a professional athlete or somebody who's training for a certain performance in which maximizing everything to the nth degree, where the difference between placing or winning a championship or having a new record could be fractions of a second, then the idea of fine-tuning things to the point of getting them just right maybe becomes important. But for most of my clients, and most, I would say 99.9% of people who are exercising for health and for maintaining functional ability throughout their lives and having a great old age and being able to play with their grandkids and play golf and do all these things, the biggest thing is as long as they do proper exercise consistently over time as opposed to not doing it. And of course, when I say consistently over time, that presupposes that the exercise, the proper exercise that they take, that they participate in is safe. In other words, that it doesn't destroy the body in the process, doesn't cause injuries, because A, if you hurt yourself, you're unlikely to continue with your exercise program. And if you have an exercise program that causes chronic injuries from overuse over time, even though you may remain strong, you will do so at the expense of your joints, ligaments, and tendons. And unfortunately, just aging itself already is going to do that to some extent. So you want to make sure that you're not adding to that with an exercise protocol that's unsafe. So having said that, if you are exercising regularly, proper exercise without hurting yourself, proper exercise meaning that you are doing it intensely enough and safely enough to create an adaptation response, and you continue to do that, the benefits are incredible and can literally be life-changing. But the fine-tuning, yes, if you're into it and you just really just want to be the best that you can be, and it's part of the fun thing to see just how great you can be, great. If on the other hand, you're the type of person who says, this is kind of like brushing my teeth, I want to get it done, I know it's necessary, I know it's going to help me to age well and have functional ability, I want to work hard, have a good workout, but I don't want to lose any sleep over minutia, then part of me thinks some of this is not nearly as important. Anyways, I welcome feedback on this, and I will expose send this to various people whose opinion I respect, and I will hope to add their comments at the bottom of the YouTube if either they add them themselves or if I just speak to them or on various forums, I may copy with their permission, copy and paste their comments. Have a wonderful day.